In this video, I want to clarify a question that I've actually had quite a few times. And that is about the difference between feeling into the sensation to release it, really feeling into what's at the root of your symptom. I recommend that a lot. And then I get the question, how does this relate to brain retraining courses that say that you should avoid paying attention to the symptom, that you should not give the symptom your focus, your awareness, that you should move your attention away from it? It's a good question. It's a good thing to clarify, because I can totally understand how that would be confusing, right? It seems like two quite opposite approaches. So let's dive into this, right? The important difference, I would say, between these two methods is that with the brain retraining method, you're often, this is my interpretation of it, that's all I can really share, right? So I'm just, I don't design these brain retraining courses, so I can't say exactly what they mean, but I'll just relate and hopefully it clarifies it for some people that find this a confusing kind of clash. So with the brain retraining courses, my feeling of it is that you don't want to fixate on the symptoms as symptoms, right? And I would recommend that as well. But there's a big difference between doing that and really dropping labels and seeing what am I actually avoiding, what is actually uncomfortable. And that was my path to recovery, right? And the path out of suffering on a bigger level, right? Not just looking at things with the label of illness and symptoms, but looking at resistance in general and how all of our suffering arises from running from the uncomfortable experiences in the body. So going into it, going towards it, you see, and if you can drop the labels, right? Okay, there's my symptoms. Can I go into it? Can I see there's resistance? There's a part of me that's saying, no, I don't want to go there. Can I drop that? And then keep doing that. That's a different practice than the fixating on your symptoms from a space of resistance. That's what I would say is important to drop. And that's what I think the brain retraining approach is if you constantly throughout your day labeling sensations in your experience as, oh, there's my symptom, oh, that's part of my chronic illness, that's the reason I'm having a crash, this constant monitoring and keeping track and stressing yourself out by believing that the physical sensations mean that you're going to have a crash, mean that you're getting worse, mean that you're getting sicker, right? It's really important to see here that all of the struggle there, all of the suffering, all of your big crisis is happening on the interpretation level. So to see that you're already labeling it as a symptom, you're already labeling it as part of the illness, like that whole cascade of problems is happening above, in the mind on the interpretation level. Really important to hear. I'm not saying you're imagining your problems. I'm saying that if you sit and you learn to meditate and you can spend half an hour twice a day noticing how your mind puts all of these labels on top of the symptom, right? So you see how the mind says, okay, there's my symptom, this is my chronic illness. Okay, now I'm going to sit and I'm going to explore this. And this is the work I recommend, is go into the sensation, right? Go look, what is underneath the symptom? What is it that your mind is labeling as a symptom? And see the resistance there, right? You have to be willing to get uncomfortable to do this work. That is why people often don't like me talking like this, because you'll have beliefs in your mind to keep you away from the discomfort. Basically, that's how the mind works, is we develop all of these beliefs and kind of identities and stories in the mind. And I'm not, often people get triggered when I talk like this, like they feel like I'm saying that, oh, you're choosing this, it's all in your head. If that's what you think that I'm saying, then maybe you shouldn't be watching my videos, because at this point, I'm really talking to somebody that's not going to get triggered every time I say that, hey, look, there's a way out of your chronic illness by diving in and seeing how your mind is making it worse than it is. Because if you're just going to take this as, oh, you're saying it's all in my head, you're just not going to get anything out of this. So I just wanted to say that. But you can see how all of that struggle is happening on the interpretation of the physical sensation. So I recommend going into the physical experience, and it is uncomfortable, right? It is difficult. You're going to go through barriers, resistance barriers, fear barriers, emotional repression stuff. You don't know what's going to come up, but it's worth it in the long run, right? I had a call with somebody yesterday, and he was bedbound not too long ago, struggling with so many co-infections, and his immune system wasn't working properly. And somehow he found his way to practicing meditation, to really shifting his mindset on symptoms. And he's made incredible progress to where he started to kind of do a little bit of exercise again. And the key thing here is, often people are so afraid of growing their boundaries, but what this person has done, what is all of the work around that is what allows him to grow his boundaries, right? So the ability to really have a different perspective on his symptoms, just talking to him is very clear that he's going to find his way through this, because every time a symptom comes up for him in his experience now, he looks at it as an opportunity to work with resistance. And that is such a different perspective as a symptom is coming up and, okay, I need to do whatever I can to get rid of it. And the fear behind it and all of that. That's when we're identifying as the resistance. Resistance comes up and we don't have enough awareness and mindfulness, which is why meditation is such a helpful tool, to see that we are getting caught up in the resistance thoughts, in the fear thoughts. So I just wanted to share that so that people know I'm not just talking about myself here. It was really awesome to see how another person had come to this kind of approach themselves, where and that mindset, in a sense, of being able to see, when a symptom comes up, that is my chance to go into resistance. That is my way through this, is into the resistance, into the symptom. Every time a symptom comes up, every time your experience gets difficult, that's your chance to look at the physical experience of resistance through a magnifying glass, to be what is actually the problem in my experience here? And is it all just happening on a reaction level? Because you really can get to the space where you can see that whole cascade. When you come back down to it, when you explore it, and I find you kind of need some practice like meditation to not get caught up in your mind so much, so that you can go to the direct experience of the sensation. When you can do that, you can see that it was all just this tower of resistance on resistance on resistance, on fear, on that, on that, on that. And once you can just explore it neutrally with an open perspective of okay, I'm not trying to fight with resistance. I'm just neutrally noticing, allowing. And I would even sometimes say I didn't use neutral. I used love a lot. Okay, what would it be like to just allow resistance so fully from the heart? It's okay, you can be here. So yeah, I think that answers the question. I wanted to just touch on a couple of components there that go into the uncomfortable sensations, but the difference is don't keep staying on the surface level of this is a symptom and I need to keep my distance. Dissolve that distance. Find out what is your mind resisting, right? It's actually such a curious exploration. That's when this work actually becomes a lot more, gains momentum, is when it sparks your curiosity, and for me, if I can just share, my curiosity really got sparked when I had, from listening to enough meditation, awakening, non-duality teachers sharing from the perspective that your present reality as it is perfection but your mind is resisting certain aspects of it, which turns it into, it can be very intense suffering. And I had tastes of this, and I knew fundamentally what they were talking about was true, that this is it, right? This is heaven, but it can look like hell through lenses of the mind, basically. And that is what made resistance such a curious exploration for me, because I was like, I get that, I get that, but why am I suffering right now? What is in my experience that is making me suffer? Why am I struggling? And that's a powerful exploration, because now you're actually genuinely curious. You're like, but what am I resisting? I would listen to John Aston talk, and he would be like, it's all this. And he's right, but you have to do the difficult work. You have to go through the resistance so you can see how your mind is causing you to suffer. So you can understand your suffering, understand, it makes it sound intellectual, but so you can see the mechanisms of your mind, how believing the thoughts is what makes you suffer, right? So your suffering is your greatest guide. Your resistance is your greatest guide, because you have to see the contrast between living in thoughts, in resistance, and how uncomfortable that is. You kind of have to see that. You have to see how when I stay on that level, I suffer. And then you get a taste of another level if you get good pointers, if you meditate, if you use some of these practices and techniques, you can taste it, and then you can see how you go back into your suffering. And then you have to, there's a lot to work through, right? So don't judge yourself if it fluctuates. There's a lot of that. But that fluctuation is what helps you to keep on letting go, because you can just keep on seeing how coming back to this thought-based level of believing the mind, getting caught up in resistance is uncomfortable. You have to keep seeing that, because there is a lot of barriers to letting go into the unknown, right? Everything you want is in the unknown, but the mind is terrified of it. So to get the drive, I suppose, to keep letting go, you have to keep seeing how not letting go makes you suffer. So your suffering is showing you where you're not letting go. It's showing you why you need to let go. And then sitting, being willing to dig in, being willing to inquire, being willing to sit and feel and have good pointers from guys like Angelo DeLillo, for me, is really helpful to take things deeper, deeper, deeper. And then you just start to see how you just don't need to go back into that kind of level of suffering anymore. The more you've kind of fluctuated and let go, you just don't go back there anymore, because you see it's unnecessary. I mentioned another video. It's like you just stop smashing your head against the wall, but you didn't know you were smashing your head against the wall in the past. It's like you were oblivious to how you were causing your own suffering. And then eventually you can see it, and then you can see how you got into the place where you didn't know that you were causing your own suffering. It's like, it's all innocent, but you can see that there is a different way of being. So yeah, I think that's enough. And I think we covered a bunch of different topics, but it's all always the same topic of, we actually just want to get to the root of resistance and suffering and get to freedom. It doesn't matter what the mind's labeling it as. That's what you really want, right? So all the best.